Hi, my name is Alex Fensky, and I am your Chicago Southland real estate investment specialist. I'm going to talk to you today about three things to watch out for, three important considerations if you're thinking about buying investment property out of state. Now, being in the Chicagoland area in Illinois, people complain about our property taxes, and I don't blame them. They are among the highest in the country. But that's only one consideration when you're thinking about where to own property. And you'll hear, especially around here, you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, there's better areas to invest. Now, objectively speaking, if you look at the price of real estate, the taxes, the rent amounts, and things like that, I'm 100% certain that you can find places in any given year, any given market cycle that are an objectively better place to invest than right here or than in any place. Right? That's gonna change around a lot, and there's always going to be a better place to invest based on those numbers. But that's not the only consideration. Let me explain. Um, Number one of the cardinal rules of investment, and not just in real estate, but in any kind of investment, is invest in what you know. Warren Buffett gives this advice. He's a pretty smart dude, but there's a lot of people that have come before him that have followed that same advice successfully. You need to know what you're going to go and plunk a bunch of money down into. You need to know about it a lot. And the more you know about it, the more you reduce the risk that you make a costly mistake. And so if you're thinking about buying a property in some far-flung place because someone told you it was good and the numbers look good on paper, but you've never been there, I'd give that a hard no. Might you do well with that? Sure, anything's possible. But there's so much you don't know that you don't even know. So at that point, I would say you have really high risk of making a costly mistake if you do not know the area that you're going to invest, especially if you're making your first investment purchase. Even then, we have to be even more cautious about investment mistakes because the goal on the first one is to hit a base hit and 100% prevent any mistakes that could put you out of the game. You got to stay in the game. So that's number one. Now, here's my take on this. Uh, it's 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 more likely for me to make a mistake when buying an investment property in the best investment area on earth that I don't know the area than it is for me to make a really costly mistake in a mediocre area that I know like the back of my hand. I'll do better because I know more about what I'm investing in, even if the area isn't as objectively good, because I know more about it and I'm going to minimize my risk of a mistake. So I would encourage you to consider that. Now, if you're talking about investing in a town that you used to live in and you still have family back there and you travel back there, that's a different story. I'm talking about where someone says, "Hey, did you know that, wonderful town North Carolina is the best place to invest?" And you're like, "Yeah, where do I sign?" Don't do that. Number two, second consideration is normally when people have out of state investment property, they have a property manager in place, and you probably should because you need some boots on the ground, you need some eyes and ears in the field. But even with the manager in place, your job as the owner is to manage the manager. Now, unless you've got God's gift to property management, how will you know that that management company is at all times doing the best job possible, that they're being honest and they're acting in integrity, and the things they're telling you about what's going on at the home are all true? It's all good when the checks are coming and things are being cashed. But what happens when there's a problem with the tenant? What happens when there's problems with the property and they're sending out contractors and the stories are changing? Or, it's been longer than they said it was going to be for this tenant to move out. Like how are you going to know that manager is doing what they should? Well, one of the ways you can figure that out is to be at the property, to go look for yourself and go, you know what, we're having an issue with something. I'm going to go look at it. Or I'm going to speak to that tenant myself. I'm going to drop by the property. You can find out a lot that way. And if that property is a plane trip away, you're probably going to wait a long time to do that. And you're going to potentially make a bad problem worse by doing that. So no property management company is perfect. Great ones are great. They're also tough to come by. And if you're states away, it will be very difficult for you to manage the manager. Number three consideration is if you plan on traveling to a property in order to check on it in the way that I just mentioned, meet with your manager, take a drive by the home, do a quarterly or biannual inspection, something like that, then be sure to include that cost when you're looking at your cash flow projections. So if you're comparing an investment in a wonderful place that you don't otherwise go to and you don't otherwise know. And so you're going to follow my advice and you're going to go there, you're going to learn about it, you're going to check it out, and you're going to go out there two, three, four times a year, even if it's only two times a year, and you get a cheap plane ticket and a cheap hotel and it costs you $1,000 and you go twice a year, that's $2,000. So that's the equivalent of, I don't know, 150 something dollars a month in cash flow. So you need to compare that to what's available in areas that you wouldn't need to travel specifically to. Account when there's costs for managing a property afar that you would not have those costs for managing a property here. You need to account for those in your calculations, and that could make a better seeming investment. It could put it right on a level playing field with whatever you have available. So, in summary, here's the three most important considerations when you're talking about investing out of state for rental property. Number one, invest in what you know. Don't go outside that. Number two, manage the manager and understand that that's harder when you don't live in the same state. And number three, account for any travel costs that you would have if you're going to need to travel specifically to go and manage a property. That number one rule, invest in what you know. I've violated that rule. I've bought stuff in areas I didn't know. I almost always pay the price for it in a big way. So I would stick with that. If you're thinking about making an investment purchase either here or anywhere else, please call me and I'll make sure I point you in the right direction. Thanks a lot.